Good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation in our Collegiate Recovery webinar series. My name is Tim Rabel, he, him pronouns, and I'll be your host today. We're joined by Catherine Drodis-Cuthbert from Vanderbilt University for a spotlight webinar on their Collegiate Recovery program. These webinars are hosted by the Association of Recovery in Higher Education, ARHE, in order to support the growth and development of the Collegiate Recovery field. Just a few reminders and logistics items before we turn things over to Catherine. Today's webinar will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube and the ARHE website. You'll be able to go back and access all the information at that time. If you have any questions for our presenter, please enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your window. There will be time at the end for Q&A, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Supplemental materials provided from the presenter, such as slides, can be emailed out to all webinar registrants after the session. If you're having any technical difficulties or have any logistical questions, please feel free to message us through the chat box and direct the message to all panelists if you can. We're always looking for ways to improve, topics to cover, and any other feedback from our attendees. Please feel free to reach out anytime and let us know about your experience today. I'll now turn things over to Catherine. Catherine Drodis-Cuthbert serves as a student well-being coordinator for the Center for Student Wellbeing at Vanderbilt University and is the administrative facilitator for Vanderbilt Recovery Support, their collegiate recovery program. She's a certified educator and executive coach with a master's degree from Vanderbilt University, along with a teaching for college certification. She also earned a graduate certificate in complementary medicine and wellness from Oakland University. Previously, she developed and implemented the health and wellness program at Nataki Taliba Schoolhouse of Detroit, which focused on nutrition, self-care, stress management, and substance misuse prevention. Catherine recently served on the NASPA Region 3 board as the Alcohol and Other Drug Prevention Knowledge Community Representative. Catherine, thanks so much for joining today, and I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Drodis-Cuthbert, and I use she, her pronouns with Vanderbilt University, and I'm really excited to talk about our collegiate recovery program. So our CRP is named Vanderbilt Recovery Support, and we are housed within the Dean of Students. And within the Dean of Students, we are part of the Center for Student Wellbeing. And as we go along, I'm going to kind of explain what that looks like and the services that we provide. The first thing I wanted to share are just some interesting facts about Vanderbilt University. I enjoyed going through, I remember orientation, learning a few different things, but it's been fun to go back through that as well. So when we talk about Vanderbilt University, it was founded in 1873 in Nashville, Tennessee, which is considered Music City. In a typical year, there'd be lots of live music everywhere. The interesting thing, it was founded by Cornelius Vanderbilt and with a $1 million donation. He had never been to Nashville, Tennessee, and he'd actually never visited the university once it was founded. His idea was that he wanted to create the Harvard of the South. Most of the concentration of higher education was in New England area in the Northeast, so he wanted to expand that. And so part of that was creating Vanderbilt University. Additionally, Anderson Cooper is a relative of Cornelius Vanderbilt. So we're a residential university on an urban campus. And a residential university was something that I was not familiar with before I came to Vanderbilt because it was not my experience in undergrad. But with a residential university, it really is expected, it's kind of built in to students kind of living and learning community that they will be on campus for all 4 years. They will be living and learning on campus for all 4 years. So again, that's most students. There are a few students that in a typical year would be able to have off-campus housing. It looks a little different this year as we're trying to disperse the campus. But it's really interesting. So with the living learning campus, it has most of our living learning communities and residential halls have a faculty head of house. So this is someone who lives within that living learning community, provides a lot of programming for students. And that's also been really helpful this year, especially because obviously there's been some limitations in the time of COVID with particular protocols and things like that. We are an urban campus. Downtown Nashville is a couple miles from our campus, which has an interesting environment. So there definitely is some access to substances, and that's something that we have to program around and be aware of. But Nashville's a really amazing recovery community. It's a really rich recovery community, lots of 12-step programs. There's a really huge recovery musician community within Nashville. Even within walking distance of our campus, there's several IOPs or intensive outpatient programs. We also have several treatment centers as well located within Nashville. So it's really a great place for students to be able to get connected. And that's one thing that I've really enjoyed, and I know that the students find helpful. So we have undergraduate, graduate, and professional programs. We're currently ranked 14th in national universities by US News. We are tied with Brown University. For 2020, the acceptance rate was 11.6. This is actually a little bit higher. We're normally around 9.1, 9.6, but you know, different times. And then our graduation rate is 93%. Total enrollment is about 13,500. For undergraduates, it's around 7,000. That's pretty static. Because we are a residential campus, that means that students need to have a space to stay and live. So that's not something that they're growing. But graduate and professional students are around 6,500, and that can change as programming changes. I think one interesting fact is that around 65% of students receive some type of financial aid through our program. It has a really robust financial aid program through Vanderbilt. All right, so I think one of the things that is necessary is to acknowledge kind of the current state of the world. We not only are in the midst of a global pandemic, but we also know that there is ongoing social injustice. There's consistent harming and killing of Black and Brown individuals. This is having an impact not only in our cities as individuals, but also our country as a whole. And I think that's something to acknowledge, and that's something that we've had to do within our Collegiate Recovery Program. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but just something to acknowledge that some of the things that I'm going to talk about today would be in a typical year, and some would be kind of what we're doing now to make adjustments. I always say we're going to be very resilient when this is all through, because we have to be flexible. So I wanted to give a little bit of a timeline for Vanderbilt Recovery Support. In the fall of 2006, Texas Tech gave a presentation, and it was funded by SAMHSA, and this was something that Vanderbilt received one of the first grants. And so the whole idea was to publish this national programming model for their program. And so we were one of the first schools to adapt this model. And so in 2008, in the spring, Vanderbilt Recovery Support was launched. We had a dedicated room, and we had, we adopted a mission statement. I wasn't here yet, but we also hosted the first on-campus support groups for Vanderbilt students. So I think that that's a really big initiative. It's something that if we look at the University Counseling Center's website, they have many identity groups, support groups. So I think that that's kind of an important first, that now it's been able to expand and develop throughout campus. In the summer of 2008, Vanderbilt hosted the Association of Recovery Schools annual conference. This information is from Andy Finch, and you'll see an image of him later, but he is one of the co-founders of Vanderbilt Recovery Support, faculty member at Vanderbilt, and also does a lot of addiction research, and incredible person. And then we have kind of moving into 2014, in the spring, we created our first on-campus recovery housing. So we created our application, and then it was ready for the fall of 2014. In 2016, Vanderbilt Center for Addiction Research was created. Their goal was defining the molecular events that drive addictive behaviors, and ultimately to develop new treatments that can help people sustain long-term recovery. So this is a center that we also partner with, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about our collaborations. And then you also see this image. This is the Center for Student Wellbeing. So the front, where you see that beautiful bay window, is our Vanderbilt Recovery Support Lounge. We're really excited. When we began, so when I first started, there was already a space, and I would always say it was in the lowest level of a residential hall by the recycling reciprocals, but it was in the basement by the trash, but it was a really beautiful space. And we were excited and fortunate to have it, that it was something that was dedicated that our students could use. And it was a well-used space. We had meetings, we had events in that space, but it was pretty small. And the beautiful thing was we outgrew it. And so this was kind of the next step. We were having to have meetings in separate spaces because we had, grown, and that's a good problem to have. So now we are in kind of front and center of the Center for Student Wellbeing. This is Chancellor Zeppos and Dean Bandis and the rest of the Center for Student Wellbeing crew. We were able to open the Center for Student Wellbeing, and Vanderbilt Recovery Support is housed within the Center for Student Wellbeing. In 2018, we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and in the spring, last spring, we were supposed to host the Southeastern Collegiate Recovery Summit. We were very excited about it, and then COVID hit. So, so that had dampened a little bit of our plans. We've been planning all year and set up quite a lineup. So to give you a little bit of context to kind of when I talk about we're part of the Dean of Students, we also are part of this larger student care network. So these are the 4 primary offices: the Office of Student Care Coordination, the Center for Student Wellbeing, the University Counseling Center, and then the Student Health Center. So those are the 4 primary offices for student care. We are fortunate that we have a lot of abundant resources for students. So again, we have more than is listed, but I think these are some of the services that students access a lot. So International Student and Scholar Services, LGBTQI Life, Black Cultural Center, Project Safe Center, Student Center for Social Justice and Identity, and Student Leadership and Development. And again, these are for all students, but being a Vanderbilt Recovery Support student means you also have access to these larger campus-wide resources as well. So again, this is a drawing of the Center for Student Wellbeing. It was built in the late 1800s. It is one of the, there was 9 original faculty houses on campus. There's only 4 left, and this is one of them. So we're excited to be able to have it be renovated and for our students to share the space. It has a meditation room, a classroom, Vanderbilt Recovery Support Lounge, and then also our offices as well. So with the Center for Student Wellbeing, I am a student wellbeing coordinator, which means that along with overseeing Vanderbilt Recovery Support, I'm also responsible for these services as well as my colleagues. So we offer individual coaching for students. We provide skill building workshops, weekly wellbeing practices, which include several meditations a week. We also include Vanderbilt Recovery Support meetings as part of our weekly wellbeing practices. Substance use screenings, so audits, alcohol use disorder identification test, QDIC, cannabis use disorder identification test, basics, brief alcohol screening in college for college students are all part of what we do as well. Many students are referred through student accountability for kind of an educational session. And the whole idea is for students to be able to kind of see their patterns of use and set some goals around that. And for some students, that may be the first time I see a student that eventually comes into Vanderbilt Recovery Support. There may be years between those 2 events, but oftentimes that can be an early intervention. Students can also self-refer if they're concerned about their patterns of use or just want more information. We do a lot of preventative programming, and then of course we have Vanderbilt Recovery Support. So some of the workshops that we offer, again, we offer many, but these are some of the ones that are, again, used by our students. Surviving and Thriving with ADHD is a weekly wellbeing workshop that is in collaboration with the University Counseling Center. MAPS, Mental Health Awareness and Prevention of Suicide Training, Financial Wellbeing, Coping in the Time of COVID, Resilience 101, How to Student Finals Prep. So we have an academic skills coach on camp in our Center for Student Wellbeing who's amazing. So there's lots of support for students. Again, students have to be willing to not only access those access those services, but also be able to participate. But we do offer a lot of resources. And then Vanderbilt Recovery Support. So the medallion that you see, "You are not alone," that really is our motto for our collegiate recovery program. And this is something that students will receive in their first meeting, but also for their celebration of ongoing sobriety. So we offer 2 recovery support meetings a week. These are virtual at this time. We also have Vanderbilt Recovery Support membership for individuals who have a minimum of 90-day sobriety. They fill out an application process. Those individuals have access to the Vanderbilt Recovery Support Lounge 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Recovery housing is available for students both on and off campus. So that's something that we initially started with just on campus students, but we also, like this year, there's a need, and it's really to be able to have more accountability for students. So students who apply to be in recovery housing are agreeing to weekly coaching appointments. So that really is relapse prevention, mindfulness focus, goal setting, relationships, anything you can think of that can help kind of make that transition, whether students are on campus for the first time, or maybe they're coming back from campus. So maybe they've taken a medical leave of absence, been to treatment, and now they're coming back sober for the first time. And so how do you navigate that? How do you navigate, friends that you used to hang out with and use, and kind of navigating those different dynamics. We also have randomized drug screening through our student health center. We also have monthly seminars, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. So again, just trying to help create that community of care for students. We have a friends and family meeting. That's something that's been, we started a couple years ago, which we've heard was really needed. And I do think it's needed. It's a kind of an Al-Anon-esque meeting. But we've had, really varied experiences with that meeting. We had one semester that really had strong, consistent attendance, and then some where it's a different person will come each week. And if everybody would just come in the same time, they would all be able to meet. So that's been a challenge. That's one thing that we want to continue to work towards, see if we have to change the time. We typically have it during lunch. And then we also offer a lot of social and service events for students as well. So this is our Vanderbilt Recovery Support Lounge. You can see it both kind of not doweled up. We have the one image is really showing our graduation celebration. So something that we would typically do at the end of every year. We turn the entire Center for Student Wellbeing into a graduation celebration space where students can bring their family members, a close friend to really share this momentous occasion. And again, they've got beautiful natural lighting. There's bean bags, so sometimes students take naps in their study. There's a coffee and latte machine. So we have other students that are really trying to get in there a lot of times. And then for our monthly seminars, we really try to do a variety of different seminars to focus on kind of what may be needed at that time. So tomorrow we have an opioid epidemic, Narcan, and overdose prevention training, where all individuals will receive a Narcan kit at the end. We've done virtual reality, that's recovery focused. It's been really, really interesting. There's some research on our campus. And so that center came over and worked with us. Music therapy, relationship building. We had a local therapist that came out and talked about how to navigate what relationships look like, especially in the beginning. Neurobiology of substance use disorder. We just had last month a recovery ally training, art therapy, meditation, mindfulness, and a variety of other monthly seminars, just trying to keep it interesting and engaged, and also thinking about the flow of the semester. If it's finals time, we're probably not going to do neurobiology of substance use disorder at that time. We try to keep it, keep it with the flow of the semester. And collaborations are huge. That's one of the biggest things that we've done over the last several years. These are just different images from different programming that we do. We do a really beautiful celebration of music and recovery. And that's with Jeff McCluskey Promotions. And that's something that we've done for several years. And it's nice, Gabriella, who you'll see in the poster, that's a Vanderbilt student. So that's also really excited to include Vanderbilt students that are pursuing music as well. And it started as a really small, just for Vanderbilt Recovery Support. I think there was maybe 10 or 12 people. And then at our peak, I think we've had 125, 150 attendees. So it's something that's really expanded over the years. And I love that because that's how we create allies, right? We help to reduce stigma. We start talking about recovery, because that's part of what we do. It's not just music, but we also have somebody who speaks on recovery during the music event as well. Patrick Kennedy came, so we're really excited that upper administration collaborated with Vanderbilt Recovery Support and the peer guides from the Center for Student Wellbeing to have us kind of host a very small event and be able to ask him one-on-one questions. We work with our religious life. I know it looks like it says breaking bad, but it actually says breaking bread. So it was a dinner and discussion. So that was something that we've done. Every year, Lisa Smith, who is the author of Girl Walks into a Bar, she's amazing. She's a lawyer. So it's an annual event that we host with the law school. She comes in and speaks. And University School of Nashville is a local high school that we've been collaborating with for several years. Typically we have in the fall, a couple of students will come and speak to their students, about 425 students. This year on Friday we're doing it, but we're doing it recorded because of COVID. But we're really excited to be able to continue and maintain that relationship. They have a student organization called DASH that is working with substance use and mental health concerns. And they ended up having a bake sale and donated money to Vanderbilt Recovery Support, which I just think is the sweetest thing. They just thought, hey, this is something we want to support. And then we also have our what we call COMM VU, which is our alcohol awareness and community responsibility program at the beginning of every year. So it's the first year, students, transfer students, and typically that again would be in person. And we always have Vanderbilt Recovery Support student that participates, because we know that, and we also have another student leader as well. So we know that students tend to listen more to when their peers are talking than when administration does. So yeah, these are just really great collaborations that we've been able to do and create throughout the years. We also have been doing, because again, with these small group limitations at Vanderbilt, it's 10 and under. So while we've been doing everything virtually, we've been able to have a couple of meet and greets with the local IOP, Nashville Recovery Center. So that's been really nice. It's a way for our students to be able to come together, share meals, and talk with other individuals in sobriety. We've worked with student organizations to do the prescription drug take back. We have an upcoming panel with Active Minds. So reframing addiction, poets and poetry on the opioid epidemic with our creative writing center, just doing a lot of different things and trying to, I think the whole idea is to reach as many different areas of campus as possible. That's one of the really great things is being part of the Center for Student Wellbeing has helped, is that it's broadened and expanded our view on campus and being able to connect with others. We have our Vanderbilt Recovery Support Committee. So Andy Finch, who I talked about, he's in a couple of these images. So we have faculty. Craig Phillip is also faculty member. So we have faculty on our Collegiate Recovery Committee. We also have housing. We have care coordination. We have student organizations, graduate assistants. So we have people from lots of different areas of campus who are part of our committee, and they've been instrumental in not only keeping Vanderbilt Recovery Support moving along, but also expanding what we do. Just wanted to point out, we have students who are current students and alumni who are doing amazing things. We have students in PhD programs, med school, residency programs, teaching in schools, counseling, really incredible things that are going on. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Nico Dorn, who is now the executive director of Alpha 180, he did an amazing TEDx talk at Vanderbilt about collegiate recovery programs. And it was really powerful. And again, that's that voice that so many people got to hear, because he was brave and courageous to be able to share his story, not only his story, but really the story of collegiate recovery programs. Jordan Jurinsky, also incredible. He did a fellowship, and he also presented on knowing a person in recovery and personal drinking frequency at ARHE last year. And then the above picture is one of our graduation celebrations. That's kind of the hallway when you enter the Center for Student Wellbeing, and just having that not only students be celebrated, but also we have alum that come back to celebrate students as well. And I think that's really powerful. So I wanted to set up some goals. You know, we always have goals, right? But I also wanted to share those because I think that that can be important too. One of the things that I always say too with collegiate recovery programs, if you are a new program starting out, like hang in there, because sometimes I think always there's an ebb and a flow. I think it depends on your demographics. I think one of the challenges with Vanderbilt is because we have a low acceptance rate, and it's a challenge for students to get accepted to Vanderbilt, even if they have really amazing ACT and SAT scores, and even if they have amazing essays and all of these things. And that can be a challenge, especially if somebody wants to come specifically because there's a collegiate recovery program. So kind of working within the framework of your university. Some of the things that I would like us to be able to do is provide scholarships. We've had scholarships for students to be able to participate in certain activities, which I want to continue, but also just providing scholarships at large. We are currently finalizing a student-created community of standards. So Keith Murphy had a really incredible webinar on creating liberated and anti-racist collegiate recovery programs. And that's really where we took, you know, really took it as a challenge. And how do we make sure that we are doing this within our collegiate recovery program? So that's something that's been developed, and we're now just in the finalizing stages. Increase more student leadership roles. This is again something that we've had over the years, and it kind of ebbs and flows. And I really want to make sure that students have this ability to really participate in what they want their collegiate recovery experience to look like. And increase participation in ARHE and Southeastern Collegiate Recovery programming. I think that, again, this may not be a goal for this year, but maybe for years extended as we kind of get out of, you know, kind of figuring out what these next couple of years are going to look like post-COVID. And this was at the ski-a-thon, so that's why I put that picture. Plus, everybody loves Eileen, so. And we created this. I just love it because it kind of talks about the different things that create Vanderbilt Recovery Support. All right, and this would be the question and answer. I don't know if we have any questions today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Catherine. That made me want to apply to Vanderbilt and leave my job and join that CRC. That was wonderful, all that stuff. Yeah, so I had a few questions that I wanted to jump to. If you have time, that'd be great. I wanted to come back to that in the monthly seminar piece. You talked a little bit about the virtual reality component. I wonder if you could elaborate on that, like what that looks like exactly. I've only used it like one time. A friend brought it over, but it was so cool. He opened up this like art kind of platform where you're in this like 3D empty space and you can like build stuff, paint stuff. And I'm like, this would be so cool for a CRC. So that's what got me thinking about it. But I'm wondering what you all have done specifically with that.
So that's basically what they're developing on campus is creating this virtual room where these are virtual 12-step or recovery support meetings. Wow. So it's really amazing. So having other people join in to the meetings themselves, and they also did some fun things, and so did I. I mean, we danced and we did all that kind of stuff too. But it was really this whole idea of how to create this virtual, especially when we think about if somebody's in an area where there really aren't any 12-step meetings, how do we get people connected? Because we know that addiction thrives in isolation. So how can we make sure that people are connected? And that was really the beauty of it. They also were like developing stories where you could actually click on something and it would share someone's story. This whole idea of like hope, and that there is hope from this. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. Another question. So wondering what specifically drew you to collegiate recovery? Like why is it like a passion of yours that gets you? Because you definitely seem excited about it. It's a great program and everything. So wondering what the personal kind of piece is and how that shapes.
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually started in undergrad. So I did not drink. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. So my whole thing was, I'm not going to drink, right? That's what my whole thing was when I was in college, especially. So I did live that college experience without alcohol, but I know it's different than if someone's choosing to be in recovery from substance use disorder. But I took a class called substance abuse because I was a health minor, and that completely changed really my trajectory of what I wanted to do. So my path is education. So I am a teacher. That is what I do. So I taught at Nataki Taliba Schoolhouse. I was a third grade teacher for 4 years, and then I developed this health and wellness program and taught K through 8th grade. And so part of that was really looking at substance use and looking at it from this really holistic well-being perspective. Because I think that that's really the key, right? We talk a lot about trauma, and we talk about other things that can help really build that community. So that's really been my interest and my focus. But honestly, it was that one class that really changed. It just kind of changed my trajectory.
Yeah, that's great. It's a good segue too. So this question was around if there's been any transformative experience or moments either for you in your CRC role or for the CRC overall. Just like, wow, like that was an inflection point. Like that was like a big step for us or for you in your role. Have there been any kind of experiences or moments like that over the course of your time in the role?
I think there's been several. Some is some are not necessarily. When you have like a loss of a student, right? That's transformative, but in a really kind of heartbreaking way. But it also makes you look at, okay, what are things that we can do differently? How can we improve what we're doing? But also acknowledging kind of what the limitations are as well. So I would say that that's one transformative experience. I also think when we opened recovery housing, because I felt like that was a really big step. It was something that they had talked about before I even came to campus. So to be able to actually see that come to fruition, I felt like it was really the university investing in our collegiate recovery program and wanting that additional support for our students.
Yeah, totally makes sense. This question got submitted before the webinar. It was asking about challenges developing out and growing a program at a private, academically rigorous institution where we don't see a lot of those in the field. It's definitely the large state schools that kind of dominate the collegiate recovery space, and especially like I went to George Washington, so it's similar kind of in the sense of a private school urban environment, and wondering like how that's been an obstacle or an asset for you all.
Yeah, and I think that's always the question is how do we, because I know there has to be more students that are out there that aren't currently connected to our collegiate recovery program. I do think that perfectionism is a piece of that. I think some students may have that knowledge prior to coming to campus. Some may, may realize once they're here, but they also want to keep that separate from their academics. So kind of, again, I think part of that is like knocking down those barriers. I think we've done a really good job with mental health and like removing barriers to seeking help for mental health. And while addiction is a part of that, or substance use disorder is a part of that, I don't think we've seen enough of a push. And I think that is one of the challenges in our specific program. And it's also, it's hard to know, like we do surveys and ask, try to get that information. We don't really know the percentage of students that are either, currently in, dependency or actively in substance use disorder. So that's hard to gauge.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. And then just final question, what's next? Like the rest of the school year, juggling everything among COVID times and how the campus is coping. What's kind of the outlook through end of 2020 into the remainder of this kind of academic year, and any exciting things upcoming or hopes for the program overall?
Yeah, I think one of the things that because we've been talking about kind of like, what are we going to do through, because we have a very large break. So the students, Friday is their last day for those who have in-person classes. Friday's the last day, and they won't come back until January 25th is the first day of classes for the spring. So that's a really long time span. We've never had that before. So part of our goal short term is to make sure that students continue to be connected, feel connected, and have the support. So continuing one-on-one coaching appointments, continuing with our collegiate recovery meetings, even if at some point we would typically take a break, we're not really going to do that. I mean, maybe like on Thanksgiving or like on Christmas, but those are things that we're going to maintain, and really having everyone stay connected. It was really important for me to have a couple of like in-person things this semester, because I think that that's really hard to ask, especially college age students, to just completely be isolated. So I'm glad that we've been able to do that. So looking forward to kind of the spring 2021, that's also, having, if there's smaller groups, like continuing that small group connections, because I think that that's huge. Gosh, large scale, I have a lot of hopes and dreams, but I'm also somebody who's very pragmatic, so I like them to be kind of in the midst before I speak them. But I think, the goal really is kind of, post-pandemic is really having students back in the Center for Student Wellbeing, utilizing the Vanderbilt Recovery Support Lounge. And I think that that alone will also, kind of increase the students that we're able to serve and support.
Great. It will be exciting to hear how that all shapes up. I think that's a wrap for today. We hope that this session was helpful and that you'll be able to share this session with colleagues, stay connected with ARHE to learn about future webinars, and let us know how we can improve our offerings. Catherine, thank you again for taking the time to present to our attendees, and we appreciate everyone's time and hope to see everyone on some of our webinars in December. Thank you for joining, and take care.
Thank you, Tim.